Chapter 979. Is the poison in the white fog acting up again? Gu Mengmeng asked in confusion. Leah shook his head and used his body to shield Gu Mengmeng. He glanced sideways at her. Don't you find him rather familiar? Gu Mengmeng frowned. She had no impression of him. Leah sighed. That's true. Cole is a 5th-level beast after all. He looks better when he's suffering from the backlash. Backlash? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She suddenly recalled the day when they had a showdown with Cole. She had used the backlash of the mating contract to defeat Cole. That day, Cole was also in extreme pain. But he was not as writhing and trembling as Leonard was now. Did something happen to Dora? Gu Mengmeng understood what Leah meant. Leah nodded. Most likely. Gu Mengmeng frowned as she watched Leonard struggling in pain. He had no other way to deal with the backlash of the mating contract. No one could help him. Zacharias is heavily guarded. How could something happen to Dora in the tribe? Gu Mengmeng could not understand. Lee's lips curved up in disdain. No matter how heavily guarded the tribe is, it can't stop an idiot from courting death. Gu Mengmeng sighed. She didn't say anything else. After all, they were all here. No one knew what had happened outside. The only thing she could do now was to wait and see if Leonard could survive the backlash of the mating contract. To be honest, even though she had Snake's memories in her body and was used to seeing bloodshed, Gu Mengmeng still felt her heart wrench at Leonard's cries and pain. How much pain did he have to be in? How could such a man, who could remain unfazed even in the face of Mount Tai collapse, be in such a pathetic state? His eyes were bulging and bloodshot. She couldn't tell if it was tears or sweat, but they flowed down his face. Ah! Every cry came from the deepest part of his chest. Gu Mengmeng had personally witnessed what it meant to tear one's heart and lungs apart. A pair of sharp claws fiercely scratched at his chest, as if he wanted to dig out his heart and crush it to end this bone-piercing pain. However, he didn't know what made him resist this desire to dig out his heart and forcibly stop the sharp claws that had already sunk into his chest. After a long while, when Gu Mengmeng really wanted to give him a quick death, Leonard finally calmed down. At this moment, there was not a single piece of uninjured skin on his body. He looked like a demon that had crawled out of hell. His eyes were sinister and venomous. He trembled as he stood up, ignoring the blood that was still flowing out of his body. He only muttered, "Revenge, I have to avenge Dora. Dora, wait for me. I will come for you after I kill him. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Even in hell, I will protect you." As Reynolds spoke, he turned back the way he came. Gu Mengmeng did not stop him and just let him leave. She didn't know if Leonard could survive that white fog. After all, he had fainted halfway and it was Wabi-Eye who had brought him out. But at this moment, his gaze was too determined. Gu Mengmeng deeply understood that revenge was his only reason for surviving. But who was he going to find for revenge? And how was he going to do it? Gu Mengmeng didn't know and didn't ask. Chapter 980. After Leonard left, Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis's neck in silence for a long time. Elvis and Leah both thought that she was feeling upset after witnessing that scene because she was soft-hearted, but did not know how to comfort her. Afraid that they would say something wrong and make her even more upset, they could only remain silent. The group continued walking forward. After a long while, Gu Mengmeng suddenly said, "Hubby, I will definitely protect myself well in the future. I will definitely not let you and Leah experience what Leonard did." Both Elvis and Leah paused for a moment before they smiled. Females in the beast world had always viewed themselves as the most precious and protecting themselves from any injuries was a basic norm. Only this little female and their family would rush to any dangerous place without stopping. Leah pinched Gu Mengmeng's cheek, and said with indulgence and some helplessness, "You finally have some self-awareness as a female." Elvis also chuckled and kissed Gu Mengmeng's serious face, saying, "No matter what, knowing how to protect yourself is always a good thing. Don't forget it the moment you turn your head." Gu Mengmeng swatted away Li's hand that was pinching her face, then leaned against Elvis's neck, whispering, "I will not forget, because I cannot bear to see you all suffer. When I saw Leonard rolling on the ground in pain just now, I was thinking, if it was you or Leah lying there, my heart would ache so much." Gu Mengmeng, who never knew how to avoid danger and would often use herself as bait, learned to protect herself for them. Her heart was very warm. Kissing Gu Mengmeng's brow, Elvis only said one word, "Be good." After walking for a long while, they finally reached the end of the crystal vines. There was only one tree there, and it was so thick that it would require a few people to encircle it. Its roots were the size of a football field, and the roots closest to the trunk were even thicker than Wabiai's body. It could already be considered a sacred tree? If it was in the modern world, it would be listed as a protected area. Gu Mengmeng jumped down from Elvis's arms and walked towards the tree on her own. Elvis, Leah, and the rest followed closely behind, but it was as if they were stopped 200 meters away by an invisible barrier, unable to take another step forward. Even Wabiai could not move an inch forward even with all his might. But Gu Mengmeng walked over without any obstacles. Turning around, Gu Mengmeng smiled at Elvis and Leah and said, "Don't worry, I can feel that it has no ill intentions and is not dangerous." Elvis and Leah frowned at the thought of the aggressive nature of the blood vines. If he didn't have any ill intentions, why didn't he allow them to get close? Gu Mengmeng did not say anything else and just turned around to continue approaching the tree. The leaves on the tree glowed like emeralds, layer upon layer covering the clouds and the sun. Gu Mengmeng looked up and saw a leaf floating down leisurely, landing right in her palm. It was cool to the touch and had a weight that did not belong to a plant. Gu Mengmeng scrutinized that piece of leaf. Then, she saw that the leaf gradually disappeared into her palm as if it had melted into her palm and into her body. Chapter 981. Gu Mengmeng stood under the tree. She looked like she was in a daze, but in fact, she was not thinking about anything. She was just feeling the changes in her body. She could feel the indescribable changes happening to her body from the bottom of her heart. After a long time, when the feeling of change stopped, she raised her hand and gently stroked the rough tree trunk. Then, at the position of her fingertips, a tender shoot grew out. There were only 2 branches, one on the left and one on the right. The leaves on the branches were curled up like a baby's swaddling clothes. The tender green was clearly thin, but it exuded a kind of vitality. A soft, crisp sound was heard. That tender branch fell from the tree trunk and landed right in Gu Mengmeng's palm. This should be the soul of the forest. Gu Mengmeng muttered to herself. At the same time that the branch fell, the barrier blocking Elvis and Leah also disappeared. They almost instantly rushed to Gu Mengmeng's side. Elvis directly pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and hugged her deeply. He only calmed down when he was sure that she was unscathed. Hearing Elvis heave a sigh of relief above her head, Gu Mengmeng's lips curled up slightly. She showed them the branch in her palm and said, "I got the soul of the forest." Elvis originally did not care much about Qi Xian, so this ransom was not even worth mentioning to him. It was just that Gu Mengmeng had spent a lot of effort to obtain this stupid branch. He did not want to spoil her mood, so he gave it a mild look and said, Keep it well. Let's go back." Gu Mengmeng nodded and used a small piece of beast skin to wrap the soul of the forest. Then, she placed it back into her snake skin pocket. The road back seemed to be smoother than when they came. There were not as many accidents and the journey was exceptionally smooth. But when they exited the Crystal Vines area, they could not find the white fog door that they came from. It was not that they could not find it, but there were too many of them. She did not know which one was the real one. All the doors looked exactly the same. Even the markings that Leah had left behind were exactly the same. Gu Mengmeng did not know what to do. Would there be any accidents if she randomly chose one to enter? Just as she was hesitating, a familiar voice came from one of the doors. "Ah, Gu, I'm here to pick you up." With that, Cole stepped out of the white fog with one foot while the other was still in the fog. Half of his body poked out of the white fog door, and he stretched out his hand in a welcoming gesture. Gu Mengmeng frowned in displeasure. Even though Cole's appearance had solved her problem of not being able to tell which door was which, but it could not hide the fact that she felt annoyed every time she saw him. "What are you doing here?" Gu Mengmeng was not in a good mood. She would not accept Cole's kindness just because he had pointed out the correct door, nor would she refuse to enter out of spite just because Cole was the one who pointed it out. Upon receiving Gu Mengmeng's signal, Elvis directly ignored Cole and walked past him through the white fog door. She had just stepped one foot in when the white fog started to roll, as if the thick clouds were being stirred up by a hurricane. Wave after wave surged towards Gu Mengmeng. Stunned for a moment, she took out the soul of the forest from her pocket. As expected, the white fog was sucked into the soul of the forest like a leak in a bathtub. Gu Mengmeng's mouth twitched. She smiled and said, "Planting trees is indeed the fundamental solution to prevent and control the smog. Aside from the topic, tomorrow was Susu's birthday. Will my babies come and wish me happy birthday? I'm looking forward to it." Chapter 982. As Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng forward, the white fog followed Gu Mengmeng into the soul of the forest. When they were halfway there, the visibility was much higher than when they came. At the very least, they could see each other's vague silhouettes. Cole then opened his mouth and said, "Ah Gu, do you intend to accept that fish?" Gu Mengmeng frowned. At the same time, she could feel the intense murderous aura emanating from Elvis and Leah. She had already explained about Fei Rui and they had, temporarily, believed her. But this matter could not be brought up again. As long as she did not chase Fei Rui back into the ocean, the two of them would not be at ease. It was also Gu Mengmeng's fault for saying such a stupid excuse to fool Dora. Speaking of Dora. Gu Mengmeng's gaze darkened as she looked at Cole. When she said she wanted to accept Fei Rui, there were not many people present. Other than the group around her, there were only Dora, Leonard, and the witch doctor from Zacharias, Nick. So, how did Cole know about this? Gu Mengmeng frowned as she recalled the backlash from the mating contract with Leonard. She pursed her lips and did not say a word. Cole chuckled softly, as if he was trying to hold back his laughter. He looked up with a pair of eyes that were 80% similar to Lee's. His gaze seemed ambiguous through the white fog. His voice carried an uncomfortable sense of joy. "I realize that you look so good when you are thinking about me wholeheartedly." Gu Mengmeng snorted in disdain. She did not say a word and just turned her face to the other side. She felt very aggrieved. From a certain perspective, Cole was right. She was really thinking of him just now. Seeing her like this, Cole twisted her disgust into shyness. His smile deepened. "Ha, all right, I won't tease you anymore. If you want to know, I can tell you." Gu Mengmeng was not interested. Actually, she had already guessed most of what had happened. Even if it was slightly different from the truth, it was not far from it. Most importantly, she did not want to hear Cole speak. She would feel disgusted the moment he opened his mouth. But Cole clearly did not want to give up the chance to show his presence in front of Gu Mengmeng. He just continued. "You should have realized it long ago, right? How could that stupid female Dora have the brains to strategize? I was the one who taught her how to frame Melinda." With that, Cole paused for a moment. He suddenly smiled with some contempt and continued. "But she is really good at stirring up other people's feelings. I just casually gave her a few pointers and she actually learned it well. She instigated Carter to snatch the mermaid tribe's territory and severely injured Fei Rui. She really thought that Fei Rui would be hers if he had nothing left and was at his wit's end." As expected, this matter was related to Cole again. Was it a surprise? It was hard to say. Initially, Gu Mengmeng did not think it was Cole, but after Cole admitted everything, Gu Mengmeng could not find a reason to be surprised. How should I put it? She felt that it wasn't strange that all the bad things in the world were related to him. In Gu Mengmeng's heart, the two of them were the source of all evil. Looking up, Gu Mengmeng asked coldly, since she was a useful chess piece, "Why did you kill her?" The white fog had thinned and Cole was not far from Gu Mengmeng. She could even see his expression clearly now. His eyes were like black peach blossoms, and there was a trace of affection in them. Didn't you fall for Fei Rui? How can I allow others to covet what you like? Aside from the topic, baby, do you want to say happy birthday to me? Chapter 983. Just because of this? Gu Mengmeng did not like Dora, but not to the extent of wanting to kill her. Gu Mengmeng would not be able to live with the fact that she had caused a precious female to lose her life because of a lie she had told. Especially, after personally witnessing the pain Leonard had to endure because of this. Cole thought for a moment before shaking his head. Because of this, but not just because of this. That female Dora is too stupid. Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Sometimes, she really wanted to try and understand what Cole was thinking, because then she might be able to find a way to rescue Qi Xian from his hands. But no matter how hard she tried, Gu Mengmeng could not succeed. A normal person would never understand the world of a lunatic. Cole looked into Gu Mengmeng's eyes and filtered out the disgust in them. He only admired the way those clear eyes were focused on him. He chuckled. Those eyes were so clean. If she could possess 30% bloodlust, 30% cruelty, 30% malevolence and 10% lust for him, how perfect would that be? But it was all right. He could take it slow and eventually achieve it. Even if she could not do it, he could slowly infuse all of these into her eyes. Chuckling, Cole said, as a reward for her obedience, I gave her a team of underwater stray beasts to help her fulfill her wish to snatch Fei Rui away and imprison him. But she was too greedy. Not only did she want to snatch Fei Rui away, she also wanted to kill Melinda, and even set her sights on you. She wanted to snatch the kiss of the ocean, using my men to snatch my things from my woman. Don't you think she is extremely stupid? Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth. I am not your woman. Cole turned a deaf ear to Gu Mengmeng's declaration. No matter what Gu Mengmeng said, she would be his sooner or later. Of course, only Cole thought this way in the entire world. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to kill Cole when she saw his face. But she did not dare to do so. She did not know if Qi Xian would jump out from nowhere to block her when she was about to kill Cole. As long as she did not snatch Qi Xian back, she would not be able to do anything to Cole. That was why he dared to appear in front of her and disgust her so blatantly, right? That stupid female kept emphasizing her great love to me. She said that although her methods were despicable, it was only because she loved Fei Rui too much. Did you know? She even showed off her clean body in front of me, saying that she wanted to give her first time to Fei Rui and make him her first partner. That look of longing for a beautiful future really made people want to shatter it. So, when she was imprisoned as a clan slave, I used a little bit of the fox seductive fragrance to make a school of male fish trample her laughable dream into dust. But unfortunately, her look of despair was not good to look at, and even made me feel that it was very boring. As Cole said, it was as if he was commenting on a handicraft that had failed on the verge of success. No matter how close the process was to perfection, it was still a mess and could not return to its original form. Gu Mengmeng frowned as she listened. Dora choosing to cooperate with Cole was equivalent to making a deal with the devil. She was not innocent, and it could even be said that she had brought this upon herself. But hearing Cole's explanation, Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt that Dora was rather pitiful. Chapter 984. I wanted Dora to just die like that. Cole continued. Suddenly, he laughed and said, but I unexpectedly found out something interesting. A tiger who yearned for the sea once met a female mermaid by the sea and fell deeply in love with her. It's a pity that tigers cannot survive in the deep ocean, and since there are so few mermaid females, they would never leave the ocean to live on land. Tiger? Wasn't Leonard just a tiger? Gu Mengmeng gave a disdainful chuckle. Why taint the word accident? Didn't you choose to make use of Dora from the very beginning because you saw this added value in her? Cole's eyes brightened. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with obvious approval. Ah Gu is indeed Ah Gu. She is so different from those foolish females. Gu Mengmeng was not at all happy to be praised by Cole. She stared at Cole coldly and didn't say another word. Cole was still smiling. He said in a, "I really don't know what to do with you" tone, "All right, I admit it. From the start, I knew that the female mermaid Leonard had his eyes on was Dora. But Dora only wanted Fei Rui. She would never leave with Leonard. So I could only play a little trick to help this pair of lovers be together." Play a little trick? Ha! Gu Mengmeng despised Cole a million times in her heart. He used these few words to describe Dora's hellish torment as a slave of the clan. He had used the fox's seductive fragrance to attract the male fish to torture Dora. Part of it was his vulgar sense of humor, but more importantly, it was to make Dora's heart break down and sink into despair. This was the only way for Dora to hug Reynold tightly when he appeared, as if clutching at a life-saving straw. And the clueless Leonard would only feel heartache over the torment his beloved had suffered. Step by step, he would fall into Cole's trap. The most important part was that Cole had predicted that Dora would never be able to obtain Fei Rui. Because once Dora obtained Fei Rui, she would devote all her attention to Fei Rui and would never work for Cole again. In other words, from the very beginning, Cole had never intended for Dora to obtain Fei Rui. He had lied to her. He had lied to her right from the start. As for Dora, it was probably only on her deathbed that she understood. Using Fei Rui to keep Dora hanging, instigating Carter to imprison Melinda, forcing Fei Rui into a corner. Then, he would intentionally leak news of the kiss of the ocean to Fei Rui. Eager to save his sister, Fei Rui would naturally head to Saint Nazaire to look for Gu Mengmeng. Cole did not need to interfere in the subsequent matters. He only needed to manipulate a few chess pieces at the crucial moment to easily achieve his goal. Once Reynold rescued Dora, he would use Fei Rui to summon Dora again. Dora had done so much for Fei Rui. She would not be satisfied if she could not have Fei Rui. So, Dora would definitely listen to Cole and instigate Leonard to take in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. Then, she would go to Sauter to ask for peace and use the soul of the forest in exchange for Gu Mengmeng's forgiveness. Was this the real reason why Cole wanted Gu Mengmeng to go to Sauter before winter? He had to ensure that Leonard would be able to find Gu Mengmeng when he went to sue for peace. Thinking about it this way. Chapter 985. Cole stared at Gu Mengmeng with an even more amazed expression. He said with anticipation, "My Gu is so smart. Tell me, what else can you think of?" "I'll tell you everything you've guessed." Gu Mengmeng gritted her teeth and turned away from Cole. She didn't want to speak to Cole anymore. She was afraid that she would lose control and strangle Cole to death. She was even more afraid that if she continued, she would kill herself on impulse. There were clues everywhere. Why didn't she see it back then? The stray beasts had attacked them at the bottom of the sea. Their 100-strong team had been reduced to a few kittens. Carter was severely injured, while Fei Rui, who was weaker than him, only had a few superficial wounds. And she had clearly noticed that the stray beasts were intentionally attacking Melinda. She had just thought that it was to restrain Carter and Fei Rui. Now that she thought about it, it was Dora who wanted to kill Melinda and snatch Fei Rui away. But there was one thing that Gu Mengmeng couldn't understand. Melinda was Fei Rui's biological sister. She wasn't a threat to Dora. Why did she hate Melinda so much that she was willing to risk the chance to snatch Fei Rui away just to kill Melinda? Was it an intolerable relationship between a lover's sister? Or was there something else between her and Melinda that wasn't their relationship? She couldn't figure it out and had nowhere to ask. Dora was dead. The reason why she could not tolerate Melinda had become a thing of the past. With Dora's death, the dust had settled. Gu Mengmeng didn't pursue the matter further. She just buried her face in Elvis's neck and whispered, "I'm tired. Let's sleep for a while." Let's sleep. Elvis supported her but with one hand and patted her back with the other, patting her gently in a rhythmic manner. Leah had been standing between Gu Mengmeng and Cole. His furry tail seemed to be swaying nonchalantly, but it blocked Cole's line of sight completely. It was fine when his Gu Meng Meng wanted to talk to Cole. But now that his Gu Meng Meng was about to sleep, Cole was still looking at her shamelessly. Cole looked at Leah and chuckled. "Ninth Highness, aren't you a little too impatient? This kind of childish behavior. It will only make me feel that treating you as an opponent is simply an insult to myself." Leah was neither angry nor amused. He just looked at Cole coldly and said, "Childish? But my Meng Meng said that this is called a child's heart, and she likes it very much." Leah was filled with disdain. If Cole had tried to goad him into action in the past, he might have fallen for it, or at least his emotions would have been affected. But when they were carving the 36 stratagems on the wall of the meeting room, Gu Meng Meng had told them the gist of these stratagems as she watched them carve. These days, he had been pondering over and over again when he had nothing to do, and now he had mastered it thoroughly. Chapter 986. Cole chuckled but didn't answer Lee's question. He wasn't angry either. Dirty? It didn't matter, as long as Gu was as dirty as him. So, as long as she liked them, he would send them to her bed, no matter how many males there were, for her to pick and play with. As long as he was the one standing by her side in the end, everything would be fine. Cole didn't say anything else. Leah also couldn't be bothered to waste time with him. The group didn't say anything else until the white fog was completely absorbed by the soul of the forest in Gu Meng Meng's hands. Only then did they see that under the white fog, there was a natural tunnel formed by the intersecting trees above their heads. It was just like the long corridor where princes and princesses would walk hand in hand when they got married. Sunlight shone down, creating countless rays of light that added a sense of romance and warmth to the long corridor. If Wabi-I and Cole weren't around, this scene would be the most beautiful and romantic. Gu Meng Meng didn't want to talk to Cole and he didn't continue chattering. They finally reached the end of the path. Gu Meng Meng lay on Elvis's shoulder, her face facing the path they had walked through. She didn't turn back, but Gu Meng Meng could feel a cold murderous intent behind her. This murderous intent wasn't directed at her. Elvis, Leah and Wabi-I were all around. Even if she wasn't a beast king and was just an ordinary female, no one could hurt her in front of the three of them. She turned back with a probing look. Meeting Leonard's bloodshot eyes, Gu Meng Meng frowned. Seeking revenge. Gu Meng Meng muttered softly. It wasn't a question, but a statement. On the way here, Cole had already admitted that he was the one who killed Dora. Hence, it was obvious who Leonard was waiting for. Cole didn't seem surprised by Leonard's appearance. His smile turned chilly as he said, "You have disappointed me again. Little Xian." Gu Meng Meng's body stiffened at the last word. Just a moment ago, she had been standing by as if this matter had nothing to do with her. But now, her beautiful eyes were searching everywhere. Little Xian, Qi Xian? The smell of blood filled her nostrils. Gu Meng Meng carefully identified it for a long time before realizing that it was Qixuan's scent. Cole was not lying to her. Qi Xian was here and he was injured. She glanced sharply at Cole, but he shrugged his shoulders innocently and said, "Little Xian was the one who requested to stop Leonard and let me go in to fetch you. I was just following Little Xian's wishes." Reynold was a level 4 orc. Even though he had just suffered from the backlash of the mating contract, the difference in levels was huge. How could Qi Xian, a newly evolved level 1 orc, defeat him? Cole was forcing Qi Xian into a dead end. Clenching her fists tightly, Gu Meng Meng squeezed out 2 words from the gaps of her teeth, "Ku." "Ugh." Cole chuckled and replied with a sweet smile, "Ah Gu, you're looking at me so intently again, it's so nice. I'll kill you." Gu Meng Meng's eyes were bloodshot and filled with hatred. He looked into Gu Meng Meng's eyes with a look of enjoyment. "Yeah, I'm very honored to be the first soul whose name is remembered in your hands. Throw open my chest and use my blood to establish your bloodthirsty rule. I will be the first soul whose name is remembered in your hands. With Xian, or accompanying me on the road to the Yellow Springs, I'm not afraid of loneliness. Intimidation, this was blatant intimidation. Cole was saying that if he died, Qi Xian would be buried with him. Chapter 987. Gu Mengmeng was being carried by Cole. She clenched her fists tightly to stop her body from trembling. At the same time, Leonard had already rushed over. He did not care that he was covered in blood, nor did he care that he was no match for Cole as a fourth level. He was already blinded by hatred. Other than killing Cole, he had no other thoughts. However, just as he reached Cole, he was stunned by Cole's sneer. Kneel down. Leonard's entire body convulsed uncontrollably. Then, he really knelt down. Gu Mengmeng was very surprised. She did not feel any beast pressure from Cole at all. But Leonard was obviously stunned. Cole looked up, enjoying Gu Mengmeng's surprised gaze. He smiled. Ah, Gu, do you see that? I am such an unparalleled existence, and I have left a place for you by my side. As long as you are willing, you are my master. I am willing to submit to you, to use this world as a stepping stone, and to bring you to a higher place. There's no need. Gu Mengmeng said. She patted Elvis's shoulder and asked him to bring her away. Gu Mengmeng felt some sympathy for Leonard. Those who hated stray beasts had now become stray beasts, but still had to crawl at the feet of their enemies, unable to resist. Gu Mengmeng finally understood what Leah had said before. Cole had never enjoyed killing, but seeing others struggle in despair. He wanted the pleasure of trampling on others. And Gu Mengmeng could not do anything about Leonard's predicament. After all, Dora was the female he had chosen. He was also the one who had decided to take in the old tribesmen who had attacked the Snake King Valley. He had even used the soul of the forest to sue for peace and left Dora behind to search for the soul of the forest with her. He had done everything himself. Now that he had ended up like this, who could he blame? Cole had made use of Dora to scheme against Gu Mengmeng. But Gu Mengmeng knew that she had never harmed anyone before. She would not be so innocent as to take all the blame on herself and say that if it wasn't for her, things would not have turned out this way. She just wanted to know where her son was and how he was now. Elvis understood Gu Mengmeng and did not say a word. He just carried Gu Mengmeng out of the corridor and looked around for Qi Xian, who was sprawled under a tree not far away. Clearly, he had been beaten back to his original form. If not for the slight rise and fall of his abdomen indicating that he was still alive, Gu Mengmeng would have fainted from not being able to catch her breath. Leah stepped forward and started his treatment without a second word. Frowning, Leah cursed in his heart. This damned Leonard, he was too heavy-handed. If Cole didn't kill him later, he would kill him with his own hands. Mengmeng's heart would ache to see Qi Xian beaten up like this. Leah, how is Qi Xian? Gu Mengmeng's voice was very soft, as if raising her voice would cause further harm to Qi Xian. But even such a soft sound could not cover the frequency of the trembling. This son of hers always tugged at her heart, causing her so much pain that she wished she were dead. Leah took a deep breath, then turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. He frowned and said, Mengmeng, you have to promise me that you must remain calm. Once she said that, Gu Mengmeng's whole body went limp and she directly fell into Elvis's arms. She held back her tears and asked, will he die? Chapter 988. Gu Mengmeng nodded. She knew this. Because last winter, when Elvis pretended to be unconscious to create an opportunity for Leah, Leah had told her this. Once something happened to her, Leah would prioritize taking care of her regardless of anyone else's life or death. So, if she wanted Leah to focus on treating Qi Xian, she had to adjust her attitude. She could not allow herself to be distracted by anything. Leah held Gu Mengmeng's shoulders with both hands. Seeing her determined expression and gradually calming gaze, he exchanged a look with Elvis before continuing to treat Qi Xian. Many of Qi Xuan's bones were fractured, probably caused by external injuries. His internal organs were also severely damaged, probably caused by his refusal to submit to the beast pressure of a higher level. There was a serious buildup of water in his chest, and blood kept flowing from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were starting to lose focus, as if he was forcing himself to look in a certain direction. Leah followed his gaze. It was not Gu Mengmeng, but Cole. "Rascal, listen up." Leah pinched Qishuan's mouth and forced his face to face him. Then, he said with a cold expression, "If you die, your mother will kill Cole to vent her anger. And I will put all the tears your mother shed because of your death on Cole's account. I will open a sacrificial altar and make him suffer for eternity, never to see the light of day again. I am a witch doctor, and also the son of the deity of the Snow Fox tribe. You know I have this ability. If you want to protect Cole, you better grit your teeth and bear with it. Live on no matter how painful it is." With that, Li's palm turned into a sharp claw and accurately opened a small hole in the water in Qishuan's chest, letting the water out. Gu Mengmeng's heart ached as she watched, but there was nothing she could do. In this F***king era where there were no anesthetics, Gu Mengmeng really wanted to use her own chest to bear the pain in Qishuan's place. But she could not make a sound. She could not even cry. Because any emotion she showed would distract Leah. Clenching her own mouth tightly, Gu Mengmeng stared fixedly at Qixuan. Leonard's tragic cries came from behind, but Gu Mengmeng could not muster up a single ounce of sympathy. Her son had been injured by Leonard. This was a debt that Cole and Leonard could not escape from. Pfft. Qixuan coughed out a mouthful of blood onto Li's face. Leah continued to focus on treating Qishuan's injuries as if he could not feel it. Cole walked to Gu Mengmeng's side and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He looked at Qixuan and Leah with a cold smile on his lips, completely unable to see the love he had for Qixuan in the past. Qishuan's body convulsed even more violently. His eyes were already glazed over and it was obvious that he could not hold on any longer. Then, Qixuan gradually calmed down. He stopped convulsing. Furthermore, he did not move an inch. Gu Mengmeng could not control herself and started sobbing softly. Leah stood up and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. He could not bear to see her teary eyes, so he just lowered his head and said, "Mengmeng, I'm sorry, ah." Gu Mengmeng's emotions crumbled at those 3 words. She shook her head furiously. "No, don't let me down. Leah, I beg you, save Qixuan. If there was a way, how could I bear to let you shed a single tear?" Leah was speechless and could not say a single comforting word. Chapter 989. Gu Mengmeng widened her eyes and glared at Cole. "If you lie to me, I will make sure you die a horrible death." Cole chuckled and released Gu Mengmeng's chin. With his palm facing upwards, he said, "Give me the soul of the forest." Without another word, Gu Mengmeng handed the soul of the forest to Cole. Without further ado, Cole turned around and squatted beside Qixuan. Then, he placed that tiny branch between Qishuan's brows. Like a leaf in Gu Mengmeng's palm, that branch gradually melted between Qishuan's brows and disappeared. A tattoo-like mark appeared on Qishuan's forehead. It was just a branch with 2 forks. One of the leaves was quietly unfurled, while the other was still curled up like a baby's swaddling clothes. A miraculous scene unfolded before Gu Mengmeng's eyes. The wounds on Qishuan's body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The rise and fall of his abdomen increased and gradually calmed down. Without another word, Leah squatted back beside Qixuan and flipped open his eyelids to look at his pupils. He then turned to look at Gu Mengmeng and nodded with a smile. Gu Mengmeng then heaved a sigh of relief, feeling that her heart had finally returned to her chest. Cole tilted his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng. "Ah Gu, I saved little Xian again. Tell me, how should you repay me?" "Repay?" Gu Mengmeng's eyes were about to bleed and the blood vessels on her fists were about to burst. She questioned him word by word. "You almost killed my son. How do you think I should repay you?" Cole looked at Gu Mengmeng with an innocent expression. It was little Xian's own decision to stay and fight with Leonard. He is an adult, shouldn't he be responsible for his own decision? Furthermore, the one who injured little Xian was Reynold. I have already crushed Reynolds' bones inch by inch to avenge little Xian. You even used the soul of the forest to extend Xian's life. The kiss of the ocean and the soul of the forest are the ransom that you promised me. I used such precious treasures on Xian, shouldn't you be thanking me? Gu Mengmeng suddenly felt that she could not speak. Gu Mengmeng's worldview was so low that she could not respond to it. It was said that a tree without its skin would definitely die, and a person without face would be invincible. This time, she had seen it for herself. He had harmed her son so many times, and now she was thanking him. What do you think if I remove your head? Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists, wishing she could crush his head. But Cole chuckled. He glanced sideways at Qi Xian, who had yet to wake up. You don't want the son you just saved. You. Gu Mengmeng was trembling with rage, but she was helpless because of Qi Xian. She could only grit her teeth and ask, what do you want for Qi Xian to be let off? Cole tapped his chin and looked up at the sky. He seemed to think for a long time before replying slowly, I'll use you to exchange for it, how about that? If you stay by my side, I will let Qi Xian go and let him leave me. Another one. Gu Mengmeng would never agree to Cole's conditions, because if she did, she would be forcing Elvis and Leah to die. Cole thought about it awkwardly, then pointed at Gu Mengmeng's left ear and said, how about cutting off your left ear and giving it to me? Left ear, that was where Lee's mating mark was. Chapter 990. If one ear could be used to exchange for a son, Gu Mengmeng would not hesitate at all. Cole shook his head, his gaze cold. You clearly know that I do not want to hurt you, why do you have to provoke my jealousy? I can't bear to hurt you, so I can only vent my anger elsewhere. Tell me, how about I change little Xian's name? Not Qi Xian, let's change him to fish in the pond. You keep using Qi Xian to threaten me, aren't you sick of it? Gu Mengmeng really hated him. She swore that as long as Qi Xian was no longer so blindly loyal to Cole, she would personally tear Cole into pieces. But Cole didn't mind. He just smiled. It doesn't matter if it's new or old, as long as it works. Little Xian is your Achilles heel. As long as I control him, you can't do anything to me, right? Even if you are so angry that you want to bite me to death, I will still generously display my artery in front of you, but you still have to forcefully suppress your desires and anger. Gu, your life is too tiring. Isn't it better to be more unbridled? As long as you can break through that shackle, your soul will be the most free. Break through the shackle? The shackle in his eyes was her son. Anyone could say harsh words, but if they couldn't do it, it was just nonsense. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to waste even a little more saliva on Cole. She just glared at him fiercely. She wanted to remember the pain and anger she was feeling now, so that she could settle the score with him in the future. Qi Xian made a soft sound. Gu Mengmeng's heart was on Qi Xian. She jumped down from Elvis's arms and pounced towards Qi Xian. She hugged him carefully. Qi Xian, tell Mummy, are you feeling better? Does it still hurt? Qi Xian moved his limbs slightly, before slowly transforming into a human in Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng sized Qi Xian up. She didn't see a single wound on him. She touched his arms and legs. His bones had all grown back. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief. Qi Xian looked at Gu Mengmeng and pursed his lips, as if he did not know what to say. Him following Cole was equivalent to Gu Mengmeng being controlled by others. Seeing Gu Mengmeng being forced into a corner because of him, it was not that he did not feel guilty, but he could not stop. He wanted to say, Mom, I'm sorry, but how could these 5 words express his apology? Besides, if he didn't repent, what was the point of saying sorry? He also wanted to say, Mummy, don't bother about me in the future, but he also knew that Gu Mengmeng was different from other females. If she could be more selfish and not care about his life or death, she would not have been so helpless against Cole and could only shed tears. If only his mother was a little more selfish, then perhaps his heart would not be so tormented. But his mother was not him. She did not have a heart as cruel as him, nor did she have a personality as selfish as him. In the end, Qi Xian did not say a single word to Gu Mengmeng. He just stood there and let Gu Mengmeng stare at him with her teary eyes. Then, he turned around and walked back to Cole's side. He lowered his head and did not say a word, just frowning deeply. Cole gently rubbed Qixuan's head with his large hands. My good little Qi Xian, this is a blessing in disguise for you. Not only did you not die, you even leveled up. Ha, you are indeed the son I raised. You are indeed the most outstanding one in the litter of cubs. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. Sigh, I still had to be disgusted by Cole on my birthday. I am probably the only author who would torture himself like this. Chapter 991. Seeing that Cole was about to bring Qi Xian away, Gu Mengmeng grabbed Qixuan's hand. Qi Xian, Mummy has not seen you for a long time. Can you stay with me for a few days? Just a few days. Qi Xian did not say a word and just looked at Cole with pursed lips. Cole smiled but did not say a word. He had a "you decide" attitude. Gu Mengmeng ignored Cole and just walked to Qi Xian. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and even pleading. Your brothers are here too. They are in the stray beast camp. They just evolved into level 1 orcs. You probably haven't seen what they look like after evolution, have you? Let's go and take a look, okay? Qi Xian remained silent as he looked at Cole again. Gu Mengmeng bit her lip. She had never thought that there would be a day when she would have to beg another man in order to keep her son by her side. Most importantly, this man was not even her son's father. The humbleness that she had never experienced in love was all used on her son. Gu Mengmeng turned around, her hand still clutching tightly onto Qixuan's wrist, as if she was afraid that he would run away the moment she turned around. Gu Mengmeng bit her lip and said, I want Qi Xian to stay with me for a few days. Go ahead. Cole stood with his hands clasped behind his back, as if he didn't care at all. But that sly and cold smile was filled with a sense of provocation. This meant that if he did not agree, Qi Xian would not agree. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. Isn't the stray beast camp your territory? Since we're already here, why not go back and take a look? Cole chuckled and played with a few strands of hair in front of Gu Mengmeng's forehead. Ah, Gu, are you inviting me? Gu Mengmeng suppressed her disgust and glared at Cole with clenched teeth. It was as if Cole could not understand the hatred in her eyes. He nodded and accepted it gladly. Since it is Ah Gu's invitation, how can I let her down? I'll accompany you wherever you go. Gu Mengmeng turned to pull back her hair, then turned to look at Qi Xian, her face full of anticipation. Qi Xian opened his mouth and finally said softly, I will go wherever he goes. Gu Mengmeng nodded and pulled Qi Xian into her arms. Now, Qi Xian was as tall as a grown man and Gu Mengmeng could no longer carry him like a child. Today, she could only wrap her arms around his waist and her height only reached his chest. But even so, a mother's hug still exuded boundless warmth, burning Qixuan's chest. Gu Mengmeng did not let Elvis hug her, but held on to Qixuan's hand stubbornly, not willing to let go for even a moment. Elvis's heart ached for her to walk on the mountain roads. Even though she was wearing beast-skin boots, the soles were too thin and her feet were so soft. Her skin would break after walking for less than 500 meters. If she really had to walk to the base camp of the backwave beasts, her feet would be so worn that even her bones could be seen. Hence, Elvis transformed into his beast form and carried Gu Mengmeng on his back. He did not seem to mind that the mounts of most females in the beast world were beast pets that would never have the chance to mate. That was a sign that their family status was low and they lacked power. He didn't care what others thought of him, as long as his Xiao Meng didn't suffer. Chapter 992. Gu Mengmeng didn't have time for him. Elvis, who was carrying Gu Mengmeng, also didn't have time for him. Leah was free, but a fourth-level beast was too weak, so Wabi-ai turned his attention to Cole. "I heard you are the king of the stray beasts?" Wabi-ai asked. Cole chuckled. "How would I dare to call myself king in front of Lord Wabi-ai?" Wabi-ai really didn't like such a pretentious person. He snorted. "I saw that you were quite arrogant when you were mocking Gu Mengmeng. Why are you so terrified now?" Cole wasn't angry. "I have always been gentle and polite to those I cannot afford to offend." That was the truth. Cole couldn't beat Wabi-ai. There used to be someone in this world who could beat Wabi-ai, Snake. Unfortunately, he died. Now, there was Gu Mengmeng, who could beat Wabi-ai. Unfortunately, she was busy, Wabi-ai shouted. "Being invincible is so empty." He glanced sideways at Cole. "If you're a coward, then so be it. Why are you spouting so much nonsense?" With that, he ignored Cole's reaction and walked over to Gu Mengmeng. "Gu Mengmeng, where are we going next? When are we going to fight? I have been cooped up for an entire winter. My bones are all stiff." Gu Mengmeng glared at Wabi-ai impatiently. "Do you think I have violent tendencies? How can there be so many fights for you? Don't disturb me from coaxing my son." Wabi-ai pointed at Qi Xian. "He is already so big. Does he still need you to coax him? I don't care. Hurry up and fight me." Gu Mengmeng was really annoyed. She hooked her finger at Wabi-ai to come over. Wabi-ai swung his arms and walked to Gu Mengmeng's side. Then, he was sent flying far away by a slap from Gu Mengmeng. He only managed to stop after crashing through 7 to 8 trees. This time, not only Wabi-ai, but even Gu Mengmeng herself was stunned. Her strength, when did it become so great? In the past, Wabi-ai would stop after crashing into a tree. At most, he would break one. Today, she had purposely held back. How did this happen? Wabi-ai wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and swooped back in front of Gu Mengmeng. He stared fixedly at Gu Mengmeng and hesitated for a long while. "Let me see the mark on the back of your neck." Gu Mengmeng pushed aside her hair and turned to show Wabi-ai. Wabi-ai was stunned for a moment and shook his head. It's not him, how could this happen? Why isn't it him?" "What?" Gu Mengmeng didn't know what was going on either. She was a little worried when she saw Wabi-ai looking like he had seen a ghost. Wabi-ai stared at Gu Mengmeng with widened eyes, as though blood was about to drip out of them. He held on to Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and said, "Go and see your father, now. Ask him what he did to Snake." Gu Mengmeng reached out to touch the back of her neck. She could not see any changes to the mark, so she could only seek help from Leah, who was standing behind her and scrutinizing the mark on the back of her neck. She used her gaze to ask if there was anything wrong with Snake's mark. Leah was a fox. He might be able to differentiate the minute differences between animals with 4 legs, but snakes, from Lee's point of view, every snake really looked the same. Leah shook her head, indicating that she did not know. Gu Mengmeng could only look at Wabi-ai again. "Don't be crazy. You have to explain clearly before I can ask. You're already more than 800 years old, why are you so jumpy?" Chapter 993. Changed? Gu Mengmeng didn't understand. She looked down at her collarbone. Elvis was a 3rd-level beast when they mated, and now he was a 5th-level beast. But the mating mark hadn't changed. It had remained the same as when he was a 3rd-level beast. The mark on her ear could only be seen at the water's edge, but Leah would definitely tell her if there were any changes. So why did Snake's mark change? Was it because it wasn't a mating mark, but a protection mark? But what was the turning point? Could it be that Wabi-ai's worries were right? Did something happen to Snake over there? Perhaps she really should ask the beast deity, but, looking at Qi Xian, who was holding hands, Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. She couldn't go to sleep now. She would sleep for at least 3 to 4 days, and Qi Xian would definitely be gone by the time she woke up. If she missed this chance, she didn't know when she would see Qi Xian again. There was one thing she had to try no matter what. She couldn't help but hold Qi Xuan's hand tighter. Gu Mengmeng's eyes were filled with determination. She looked back at Wabiai and said, I will ask him later, but not now. Wabiai was enraged. He pointed at Gu Mengmeng and shouted, he has already died for you once, what else do you want him to do? Is your female heart made of stone? Can't you show him even the slightest bit of mercy? Gu Mengmeng bit her lip and accepted all of Wabiai's accusations. She admitted that she owed Snake. She deserved to be scolded. But she was a mother. In her eyes, nothing was more important than her own son. Qi Xian had already gone through the gates of hell once today. She couldn't guarantee that pervert Cole would think of another way to torture Qi Xian, or place him in some dangerous place again. She wanted to snatch Qi Xian back. She had to snatch him back. You. Seeing Gu Mengmeng's silent but uncompromising attitude, Wabiai's eyes narrowed. He was clearly enraged. Charging forward, he roared, I will knock you out even if I have to risk my life today. Before Wabiai could reach Gu Mengmeng, Leah had already scooped her into his arms and retreated far away. Meanwhile, Elvis stood up at the same time and neutralized Wabiai's attack. Both of them continued to fight. Elvis and Wabiai had fought many battles, real or fake, so they were familiar with each other's attacks. At this moment, Wabiai was really anxious. Snake was a string that he could not touch and he could not calm down at all. On the other hand, Gu Mengmeng was the bottom line that Elvis would never give in to. No matter how strong she was, he would never allow anyone to attack her in front of him. The two of them were locked in a stalemate. In terms of skills, Elvis was still slightly weaker than Wabiai. Seeing that Elvis was gradually losing ground, Gu Mengmeng frowned and shouted, everyone stop. She did not release her beast pressure. But Wabiai suddenly fell to the ground, as if something was pressing down on him. He couldn't even get up. Elvis stood rooted to the ground, stunned for a moment. Turning back to look at Gu Mengmeng, he was also in a daze. Gu Mengmeng didn't know what was going on. She had clearly just shouted and she could scare the out-of-control Wabiai to the ground? She didn't think that Wabiai was that afraid of her. That was. Chapter 994. Gu Mengmeng suddenly recalled Cole telling Leonard to kneel down, as well as Leonard's strange reaction. Gu Mengmeng clearly remembered that she had not felt any pressure, but Leonard had knelt down at Cole's feet. The situation seemed to be the same as now. What do you know? Gu Mengmeng asked directly. Cole tapped his lips with his finger. What's in it for me to tell you? Gu Mengmeng snorted. It's up to you. Ignoring Cole, Gu Mengmeng walked towards Wabiai. Worried that Wabiai would hurt Gu Mengmeng if he lost control again, Elvis and Leah guarded her from both sides. Gu Mengmeng walked to Wabiai and reached out a hand. Listen to me when you have calmed down, all right? Wabiai sprawled on the ground, unable to get up. This was different from the previous times when he was sent flying. He had no energy left in his body. Not to mention 5th-level orcs like Elvis or Cole, even a 2nd-level wolf cub like Qi Xian could easily kill him, not to mention 5th-level orcs like Elvis or Cole. He did not move and just looked up at Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng said, Snake has another me accompanying him over there. He will not let that me fall into any danger, so the most important thing is to protect himself. Do you think Snake is someone who can be easily defeated? Wabiai was stunned for a moment before shaking his head. Snake was a godlike existence. He was powerful and invincible. No one was his match. Be it in terms of intellect or martial skills, he was at the peak of perfection. At that thought, Wabiai calmed down a little. His vertical pupils gradually widened and his emotions visibly calmed down. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief, before continuing, I will ask my father about Snake later, but Qi Xian just came back from the gates of hell, I really can't stop worrying. Let me accompany my son first, all right? Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief. Wabi snorted and did not say a word. The place where the beast deity was Gu Mengmeng's dream. Unless Gu Mengmeng was willing, no one could kidnap her and send her there. So Wabi's words had no say in whether it was good or bad. Can you get up now? Don't lie on the ground like a spoiled child. Gu Mengmeng smiled, her hand still extended in front of Wabi's eyes. Wabi roared internally. He wanted to stand up the moment he laid on the ground, but his eyelids were the most powerful part of his body. The most intense movement he could do was to blink. Cole took 2 steps forward and bent down to whisper into Gu Mengmeng's ear. If you don't say he can get up, I'm afraid he will have to lie here for the rest of his life. Gu Mengmeng did not understand but still tried it. You can get up now. Wabi flexed his fingers and felt his strength gradually returning. He propped himself up and sat up. Wabi looked at Gu Mengmeng, then at Cole. What do you know? Hurry up and tell me, or I will kill you. Cole did not seem to take Wabi's threats seriously. He continued to smile casually, looking elegant but with a hint of provocation. For little Xian's sake, Gu will definitely protect me. Gu as Gu, Mengmeng, Mengmeng. Chapter 995. Wabi's smile was filled with sarcasm. He had already been suppressing a bellyful of anger, and Cole was the only one here who had nothing to do with Gu Mengmeng. Who could he blame for throwing himself at him? At the end of the day, even when he was fighting with Elvis in a fit of anger, he did not really use his killer move. He still cared about Gu Mengmeng. After all, apart from Elvis, Gu Mengmeng was his only friend in the past 800 years. But Cole, a lowly ant. Squashing him to death was just right. Cole's neck was being strangled by Wabi and he was almost suffocating. But he was still smiling provocatively. He had never been afraid of death before. But, Qi Xian suddenly rushed out and bit Wabi's wrist that was strangling Cole. The bite force of a second-level wolf beast was very shocking. If not for Wabi's insane level of power, his wrist would have been crushed in Qi Xuan's mouth. He wanted to raise his hand to slap him out of reflex, but when he saw Qi Xuan's face, Wabi finally stopped. If he slapped Qi Xian, he would be smashed into minced meat. Thinking of Gu Mengmeng's reaction when she found out about the special training he had done for the 3 little ones, Wabi knew that if he slapped him, Gu Mengmeng would never be friends with him again. Tightening the muscles on his wrist, he forcefully flicked Qi Xian away. This was the absolute suppression due to the difference in strength. Looking at his bleeding wound, Wabi frowned and walked away, ignoring everyone. Gu Mengmeng was in the wrong from the start. As the one who inherited everything from Snake, she should be concerned that something had happened to Snake's mark. Wabi's request was not unreasonable. But she had rejected Wabi's request for her son. And then, her son had bitten him. Leah, go take a look at Wabi. He is injured. Leah understood Gu Mengmeng's worries but shook his head. You should worry about Qi Xian first. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in confusion, before turning to look at Qi Xian. She realized that Qi Xian did not look too well and was shocked. Only then did she remember that Wabi and Snake were both venomous snakes. She still remembered that she had bitten Snake and almost lost her life. It was only because Snake turned around and helped her detoxify the poison that she managed to survive. Gu Mengmeng hurried forward and supported the swaying Qi Xian. Then, she let him lie flat on the ground and looked around, trying to find the antidote herb in Snake's memories. However, there was nothing. Gu Mengmeng was extremely anxious, but there was no other way. Just as he was thinking of learning from Snake and biting the tip of his tongue to feed some blood to Qi Xian, fighting poison with poison, but before she could do so, Qi Xian swayed and sat up again. He held his forehead with one hand and placed the other on Gu Mengmeng's shoulder. He gently pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and comforted her. Mum, don't worry. I am fine. Gu Mengmeng's heart suddenly felt like it was being viciously clawed. All the grievances she had endured for the entire day suddenly exploded. Sobs. my little Xian. I thought you didn't want me as your mother anymore. You ignored me when I spoke to you. You didn't even follow me home when I asked you." Sobs, sobs, sobs. Seeing Gu Mengmeng cry like that, Qi Xian was clearly at a loss. He looked at Cole blankly. Cole seemed to have never dealt with such matters before, so he just stared blankly at Qi Xian. Chapter 996. Gu Mengmeng's bawling actually made the atmosphere much more relaxed. Qi Xian seemed to be extremely afraid of Gu Mengmeng's tears and didn't dare to make her feel at ease. Whenever he saw her red eyes, he would obediently reach out to hold her hand. Gu Mengmeng was overjoyed at this change. Ever since her son was taken away by Cole, he had never been close to her and would even deliberately distance himself from her. He always acted as if he wanted to avoid her and not acknowledge her. But now it seemed that she had been overthinking. Her son still loved her dearly. Otherwise, why would he be afraid of her crying? With this understanding, Gu Mengmeng's mood became much better. She always looked at Qi Xian with a wide smile, as if there were flowers blooming beside her head. "Mengmeng, don't always look at Qi Xian. Look at me too." Leah swished his large tail in jealousy. For the first time, Gu Mengmeng was immune to Li's tail. She pushed Leah away and continued smiling at Qi Xian. She elbowed Elvis and said, "Look at how handsome my son is." "Mom, don't worry, I'm fine, Mommy's so caring, my son is such a warm boy." Gu Mengmeng had already repeated this "Mom, don't worry, I'm fine" 37 times. Every time, she would mimic Qishuan's tone and use a boy's voice to say it, until Elvis's ears were about to grow calluses. If not for the fact that he was very sure that Qi Xian was his son and would never have any other feelings for Gu Mengmeng, he would have already killed him. He shouldn't have had any wolf cubs back then. Why did he create so much trouble for himself? Elvis was furious but didn't dare to say it out loud. He sighed and said, "Is it really alright for Wabi to leave just like that?" Gu Mengmeng's face darkened at the thought of Wabi. She then looked up with a smile and said, "It's alright. Little shit is not a petty person. At most, I'll let him bite me back." Elvis pointed at Qi Xian and said, "Him? Is he enough for Wabi to take a bite?" Gu Mengmeng exploded and said, "What, him? Who dares to bite my son? I'll kill him. I said bite me. Bite me and we'll call it even." Elvis held his forehead and said, "Why don't I or Leah return him an arm?" Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis and said, "Although this sounds a little cunning, but don't worry, Wabi will not really bite me. After all." Gu Mengmeng rubbed the back of her neck, a bitter smile on her face. She enjoyed all the benefits Snake had given her, but when his imprint went wrong, she did not even bother to look at him. She was indeed a bad woman. She was not worth all that Snake had done for her. But even so, in that world, Snake still doted on her so much. As Gu Mengmeng was in a good mood, the journey was not as boring. In the evening, they returned to the stray beast camp. Qi Xian could not stand Gu Mengmeng's sparkling eyes and finally decided to follow her back to the cave where they were temporarily staying for the night. He could also meet up with his brothers. Chapter 997. Returning to her cave, Gu Mengmeng could see Wabi hanging from a tree outside the cave from afar. He was in his original form, hanging there lazily. The only thing missing was a sign around his neck that said, "I am in a bad mood, come and coax me." Gu Mengmeng let Elvis and Leah bring Qi Xian into the house to familiarize themselves with the three little ones, while she walked over to Wabi with her hands behind her back. She looked up at the huge snake hanging from the tree. She did not know if it was because of Snake's memories, but she did not seem to be too afraid of snakes now. Smiling shamelessly, Gu Mengmeng said, "Little shit, are we even now? I won't be angry at you, so don't be angry at me too, alright?" Wabi stuck out his tongue and said in snake language, "Even? On what basis? What did I do to make you angry?" Gu Mengmeng pointed at his body and said, "You know I hate snakes, shit and snakes that look like shit, yet you still hung your original form here. Aren't you purposely trying to annoy me? I have already endured my disgust to come over and express my goodwill to you, so don't be angry. Wabi-Ai was so angry that he wanted to bite her to death. He came down from the tree, and by the time he stood in front of Gu Mengmeng, he had already transformed back into his human form. He pointed at Gu Mengmeng's nose and said, "Do you only dare to use your sharp tongue on me? Why didn't you scold back when Cole was making things difficult for you in the day?" Gu Mengmeng did not get angry. She wrapped her arms around Wabi-Ai's arm and said, "Am I not a coward? I am obviously bullying you because you can't bear to hit me. You." Wabi-Ai was actually speechless. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Wabi-Ai's arm and looked at the wrist that Qi Xian had bitten. She kept her smile and said in a low voice, "Sorry, it was Qishuan's fault today. He shouldn't have bitten you." But Wabi-Ai did not appreciate her apology and said, "There is nothing should or shouldn't. It is normal for males to attack each other. It was my decision not to retaliate. Who asked me to not be able to offend his mother?" Gu Mengmeng gave a sweet smile like a younger sister and said, "Let Leah take a look at it. Apply some herbs or something, so as not to leave a scar." Wabi-Ai snorted coldly. "What's a small injury like this? In the past, when I was beaten up by Snake until I was on my last breath, I didn't even apply any ointment, but I was still full of energy the next day." Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. "I intend to cast a bewitching spell on Qi Xian so that he will no longer rely on Cole. Only then will he return to my side and I will no longer be held hostage by Cole. So, I really can't go see the beast deity today. Otherwise, when I wake up 3 or 4 days later, who knows where Qi Xian will be brought by Cole again. The longer they stay together, the worse it will be for me. So, I'm sorry." After fighting with Elvis and calming himself down by hanging on the tree in the afternoon, Wabi-Ai was no longer angry. Just as Gu Mengmeng had said, he could not bear to hit her. Even though he clearly knew that he was not Gu Mengmeng's match in a real fight, he just could not bring himself to attack this fellow who looked so small that he could flatten her with one slap. At first it was because of Snake, then, it seemed to be out of habit. Accustomed to taking care of her, accustomed to protecting her, accustomed to her noise, accustomed to her dependence. There was a warmth to her body that made him want to approach her uncontrollably. But it was strange. He was clearly a cold-blooded animal, but he still yearned for warmth. Her gaze was still fixed in the direction of her son's departure and the corners of her lips curled upwards unknowingly. Even her voice was sweet. "I never thought that I would get married at 18 years old and have 4 grown sons at 19 years old. Elvis tightened his embrace and said faintly, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have let you give birth so early." "Idiot, why are you apologizing?" "I don't think it's bad, I just hope that it'll be better if it can be like this forever." Elvis knew that Qi Xian was Gu Mengmeng's sore point. This was also the reason why he said that Gu Mengmeng should not have given birth so early. Chapter 999. Fool. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, "You gave me your entire heart, this is already the most beautiful form of love. How could it be, just a so-so?" Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked up at Elvis's side profile. The moonlight was gentle and hazy, adding a tinge of gentleness to his coldness, as if blurring his sharp edges. Even his blue eyes had a unique allure in the night. "Hubby, I remember you telling me that you were angry at me the first time we met, blaming me for dressing weirdly and being unguarded. You said that if the person who came was not you, I would have been seen by others, so you were very angry." Thinking of the past, Gu Mengmeng could not help but chuckle. She continued asking, "But, you never told me, other than being angry, did you like me at all? If I didn't like you, why would I be angry?" "Stupid." Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips at the last word, stupid. It was a light and lingering kiss. Elvis did not deepen the kiss and only asked back, "What about you? Did you like me the first time you met me?" Gu Mengmeng smiled shyly and said, "The first time I saw you, God said 4 words in my ear, I can't escape from this calamity. The funny thing was that I thought you were just a dream and did not believe that there would be such a perfect you in real life. You even allowed me to tease you, huh? I kissed you then and said I would not take responsibility. Isn't that considered acting like a hooligan? Yeah, you can say that. Elvis smiled indulgently and did not blame her. Instead, there was a tinge of sweetness in his smile. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and said, well, at the beginning of a great love story, there has to be someone acting like a hooligan first. Look, White Snake purposely made it rain to trick Su Xian's umbrella. Zhu Yingtai pretended to be crazy and teased Brother Liang when they were sending each other off. The 7 fairies blocked Dong Yang's way. The cowherd took away the weaver maiden's clothes while she was bathing. Gu Mengmeng seduced Elvis and kissed him in her swimsuit. Elvis listened to her fallacious reasoning but did not argue with her. Whatever she said was good and whatever she said was right. The cave is already warmed, don't stand outside. The humidity during the rainy season is high and it's not good for Gu Mengmeng. Leah called out from inside the cave. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng back to the cave. Gu Mengmeng sat by the fire and hugged her knees. After hesitating for a moment, she said, I want to use the bewitching spell on Qi Xian. Leah pursed his lips and said, I have also thought of this idea but I feel that it is not appropriate. Gu Mengmeng looked up. Are you also afraid that Cole might have given Qi Xian a hint beforehand, causing irreversible damage if I attempt to cover the bewitching spell? Leah nodded in reply. Gu Mengmeng sighed and said, this is also the reason why I did not dare to take action until now. But I can't wait any longer. Qi Xian almost died today, what about next time? I didn't know when Cole would push Qi Xian into danger again. I can't take it anymore. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's shoulders gently and said in a low voice, maybe killing Cole is the simplest way. If you want, I can go now. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Cole wants to kill him, but not now. I want to snatch Qi Xian back first before killing Cole. Otherwise, if Cole dies and my bewitching spell cannot be overlaid, with Qi Xuan's current feelings for Cole, I don't know what crazy things he will do. So Cole cannot die for now. Aside from the topic, yeah, that's all for today's update. I know everyone has been holding it in for a long time. Gu Mengmeng was unable to snatch Qi Xian back and was constantly threatened by Cole. Chapter 1000. The next day, the 4 brothers returned with bruised and swollen faces. It was also Gu Mengmeng's first time seeing someone's face turn into a colorful screen and still look extremely excited. Before Gu Mengmeng could say anything, she heard Elvis ask, did you win or lose? Of course I won. Kanwa raised his head with a proud look, feeling quite proud and elated. With that, Kanwa pounced towards Gu Mengmeng. Now that he was taller than Gu Mengmeng by 1.5 heads, Gu Mengmeng could no longer hug him like before. But he still could not change his habit of hugging Gu Mengmeng. He especially enjoyed the sight of Gu Mengmeng caressing his head and smiling indulgently. But the moment he hugged Gu Mengmeng, he touched the wound on his chest, causing him to grimace in pain. Elvis stood by Gu Mengmeng's side the whole time. He was extremely displeased with Kanwa hugging Gu Mengmeng, but could only bear with it due to Gu Mengmeng's love for the 4 children. Seeing Kanwa grimace in pain, she snorted coldly and said, that was an ugly win. You. Kanwa felt so embarrassed that he was flustered. Just as he was about to challenge her, he felt his waist tighten. Lowering his head, he met Gu Mengmeng's gentle gaze and forcefully swallowed back his words. He snorted and said, I won't argue with you on account of my mother. Gu Mengmeng could not stop laughing. She reckoned that the only first-level orcs who dared to speak so arrogantly in front of a 5th-level beast like Elvis were the few cubs in her family, so, from a certain perspective, her sons were at least more courageous than others and very charismatic. Quick, tell mother, what happened to you guys yesterday? Yesterday was the first day the 4 little ones officially became independent. It was also the first battle the 4 of them cooperated in. Gu Mengmeng had wanted to peek last night but Elvis stopped her. He said that she needed to adapt to the fact that the children had grown up and needed to face the world independently. Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng asking about yesterday's incident, Kanwa's eyes immediately lit up. He pulled Gu Mengmeng to sit at the side and said, "Mother, let me tell you, the four of us went to fight a third-level beast last night." Third level. 3 level 1 beasts and 1 level 2 beast, against a level 3 beast? Gu Mengmeng frowned. The difference in levels was absolute. It was the same when Leah completely defeated Nina's partner. She clearly remembered that Leah had taken less than a few seconds to settle Nina's over 10 partners. TSK, these 4 stinking brats, don't they know to pick the soft ones to pinch? When stray beasts fought, they would immediately kill. How would they dare? Biting her lips, Gu Mengmeng held back her scolding words. The children were in high spirits and Gu Mengmeng did not want to dampen their spirits with a bucket of cold water. Kanwa gesticulated as he talked about how brave the 4 of them were last night. From time to time, he even pulled the other 3 brothers to cooperate and show the scene to Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng was infected by Kanwa's excitement and listened to his story nervously. Elvis and Leah were not very interested. After all, to them, the level of battle that Kanwa mentioned was not worth mentioning at all. Chapter 1001. But we were still not his match. At that time, Da and Lu were all knocked down and could not even get up. But that stray beast had no intention of letting us off. Kanwa suddenly changed the topic and his mood sank. Even Gu Mengmeng was so nervous that she held her breath and clenched her fists tightly. Even her brows were furrowed together. Just as that third-level beast was about to charge over and bite us to death, second brother rushed over like a deity and blocked our way. Suddenly, Kanwa's tone became louder. He turned and gestured to Qi Xian with both hands. Although I could only see second brother's back view, that back view was enough to win me over. He was tall, imposing and determined. He fulfilled all my fantasies of being a hero. Gu Mengmeng listened to Kanwa's fanboy narration and couldn't help smiling. And then? Kanwa lowered his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng with regret and grievance. He pouted and said, "Then I fainted. When I woke up, the 4 of us were already in the cave, and we don't know where that third-level beast went." Gu Mengmeng nodded. Fainted? Gu Mengmeng was a little speechless. He actually fainted at the most exciting part. Kanwa nodded and said with an aggrieved expression, "Yes, I fainted." Afterwards, no matter how I asked second brother to tell me what happened, he wouldn't tell me. "Mum, why don't you help me ask?" Gu Mengmeng looked up at Qi Xian. Qi Xian pursed his lips and looked like he was in a difficult position. It was obvious he didn't want to tell her. Gu Mengmeng didn't want to put Qi Xian in a difficult position. You are so close to your second brother. If he doesn't even want to tell you, why would he tell me? At your age, don't you all have some secrets that you can tell the whole world, but you're not willing to tell your parents? Kanwa raised his brows. No way. I have no secrets from Mum. No matter what it is, as long as Mum asks me, I will tell you. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and stood on tiptoes to rub Kanwa's little head. I will listen. Kanwa shook Gu Mengmeng's arm coquettishly. Mum, then help me ask second brother. Let me tell you, he is afraid of you now. If you ask him, he won't dare to not tell you. Gu Mengmeng pointed at herself. Afraid of me? By right, she had always been a loving mother, right? He had never said a harsh word to his sons, let alone hit them. There was no reason to be afraid of her, right? Kanwa whispered into Gu Mengmeng's ear, he is afraid that you will cry. Once you cry, he will be at his wit's end. Gu Mengmeng blushed at the thought of how she had cried in front of her son that day. Before he could say, don't mess around, Ma Yingwu stumbled forward and knocked down the other 3 like a bowling ball. The 4 brothers fell into a ball, and the youngsters, who were already covered in injuries, instantly wailed. And the main culprit, Elvis, only used one arm to carry Gu Mengmeng and said in a condescending manner, if you dare to make my female cry again, I will kill you. Kanwa wanted to explode but was pulled back by Jiaoyu. Then Jiaoyu climbed up and patted the dirt off his body. He tilted his head and said, "There are loopholes in your words." Elvis raised his eyebrows but did not say anything. Chapter 1002. Jiaoyu purposely smiled until his eyes turned into crescents, because he looked the most like Gu Mengmeng when he smiled like that. "If the four of us die, Mummy will definitely be the one crying the most." Jiaoyu blinked his eyes and purposely brought his face in front of Elvis. "So, do you want Mummy to cry or not?" Elvis reached out a large hand and caressed Jiaoyu's face. "I won't let her cry." Jiaoyu held onto Elvis's wrist with both hands and tilted his face to the side. His eyes peeked out from his palm. "If you don't want Mummy to cry, you can't do anything to the four of us, right?" Elvis gritted his teeth. This fellow was his son. He looked like Gu Mengmeng, but his brain was like Li's. Facing this fellow, Elvis could not muster up any strength at all. Shaking his head in exasperation, he still put Gu Mengmeng down. Then, he grabbed the back of Jiaoyu's neck and kicked Kanwu. Glancing at Heda, he said, "Follow me out to hunt." Kanwu was just about to reject him when Elvis said coldly, "If you want to quickly level up and catch up to Qi Xian, you have to work harder than him." Kanwu's words were stuck in his throat. Looking at Qi Xian, he did not say anything before following Elvis out. Leah started a fire outside the cave and prepared to cook. At that moment, only Qi Xian and Gu Mengmeng were left in the cave. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis was creating an opportunity for her, and she did not have much time left. Based on past experience, Qi Xian would definitely leave by noon the next day after spending the night at home. Gu Mengmeng tugged at Qi Xuan's hand and gently touched the wound on his face. "Does it still hurt?" Qi Xian shook his head. He seemed to be hesitating about something, but he still opened his mouth. "Last night, he saved us." "This him, no need to ask." "It must be Cole." Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and nodded slightly. Actually, she had guessed it. If it was someone else, Qi Xian would not have hidden it. He could just say it out loud. The reason why he did not say it despite Kanwu's pestering was because he knew that the other three brothers hated Cole as much as Gu Mengmeng. They would rather die than let Cole save them. "He's doing this for you." Qi Xian was calm, his tone unperturbed. "Mom, if I'm willing to come back and be a good son by your side forever, can you consider accepting him?" Gu Mengmeng was stunned, so, his son gave her a third option. Other than abandoning his son or taking a risk out of desperation, there was a third option. She had said that her son was more important than her own life. Now, it was time to fulfill her promise. Was she willing to sacrifice herself, suffer a little, disgust herself a little, to accept Cole? As long as she was willing to sacrifice, be willing to be wronged, and be willing to be disgusted, her son would not have to bear the risk of stacking the bewitching spell. Gu Mengmeng lowered her body, as if all her rationality had been sucked out. There was only one voice echoing in his mind: she doesn't want to. She could die for Qi Xian, but she was not willing to accept Cole for Qi Xian. She was not as great as she thought she was. She really wasn't a good mother. Chapter 1003. He schemed against you, faked a kidnapping and lured you to solder. He just wanted a chance to be alone with you and develop feelings for you. If scheming is unforgivable, then why did you accept Leah in the first place? Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything and just looked at Qi Xian quietly. She didn't know what to say. She just felt as if her heart had been placed into a washing machine and was spinning frantically to dehydrate it. It was a feeling of pain, but she couldn't pinpoint where it was. She could only stare blankly at Qi Xian, the son she owed the most and wanted to snatch back. After that, you were lured to the Snake King Valley and Ellie almost took your life. You only know that Elvis and Leah almost lost their lives in order to decipher the trap so that Snake could rush to the scene in time to be your hero. But why didn't you think about whether those traps were to prevent them from saving you or to guide them to the right path? Because she had inherited Snake's memories, Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis and Leah were trying their best to destroy the traps that Cole had set up when she was being beaten up by Ellie. Those traps looked dangerous but only caused Elvis and Leah to be seriously injured. And it was indeed because of those traps that Snake could find her so quickly. Pursing her lips into a straight line, Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything and just looked at Qi Xian quietly. Perhaps, after hearing what he said today, she would understand why Qi Xian insisted on staying by Cole's side. Wouldn't that mean she could find a fourth path? Mother, have you ever thought about it? With Cole's abilities and methods, if he wanted to retaliate, would Elvis and Leah really be his match? He had lured you to the Snake King Valley, and what was his real motive? You still don't understand until now? Gu Mengmeng was stunned and frowned. Qi Xian realized that he was too emotional and took 2 deep breaths before continuing. From the outcome, you obtained the tier of the beast deity and became the most powerful existence in the beast world, right? Gu Mengmeng's heart skipped a beat. So, Snake's death was within Cole's calculations? The difficulty of those traps and the number of traps were not set up randomly, but they were set up at the right time. It was because they knew that Snake could not bear to see her suffer and would definitely give her the tier of the beast deity when he saw her dying state, right? Good, very good. From now on, there was another score to settle between her and Cole. Mom, you always say that he is scheming against you, but haven't you noticed? Every time he schemed against you, the final result was that you got more. Even if you did not accept him because of his cruel methods, how clean could the things that Elvis and Leah had done in the past be? Mother, I'm not begging you to treat him like how you treat Leah and Elvis. You just need to do what you did in Solder previously and allow him to stay by your side. Even if he doesn't have any status, even if you don't take a look at him, it's fine. Can't you just give him a chance? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head, as if hesitating. Qi Xuan's gaze was fixed on Gu Mengmeng, all his attention focused on her. He anxiously waited for her to give him an answer the moment she lifted her head. After a long while, Gu Mengmeng finally raised her head slowly. Chapter 1004. Qi Xian was taken aback, as if he did not understand. He just felt that he could not shift his gaze away, as if Gu Mengmeng's eyes were glued to him. Gu Mengmeng's hand gently caressed Qi Xuan's little face. She said gently and warmly, "I'm sorry, Qi Xian. I am just a selfish woman. I am not willing to sacrifice my life to be with someone I do not love, nor am I willing to lose my son. So, if you blame me in the future, I will accept it all, because I deserve it." Mother. Qi Xian seemed to have guessed what Gu Mengmeng wanted to do. His eyes were trembling slightly, and every part of his body was resisting, but he could not break free. His lips trembled violently. He was already a second-level beast, but now he was like a helpless child. He stared at Gu Mengmeng and begged, "I beg you, don't, I'm sorry." A tear rolled down from the corner of Gu Mengmeng's eye, moistening her bitter smile. She waved a hand gently in front of Qi Xuan's eyes, before saying, "You are my child, the flesh and blood of mother's heart. You should live a carefree life like your brothers. Stay away from Cole, he is too dangerous. Promise mother, don't let mother worry, alright?" Mother. Qi Xian was struggling. His subconscious was constantly resisting Gu Mengmeng's hypnosis. But Gu Mengmeng had been secretly releasing the fox seductive fragrance the moment Elvis brought the 3 little ones out. Now, the fox seductive fragrance in the cave had reached a certain level. Moreover, Gu Mengmeng's hypnosis technique originated from Wang Xiaoxin's knowledge and understanding, so it could be said to be at the peak of perfection. So even though Qi Xian was resisting, he could not break free. Seeing how Qi Xian was trying so hard to break free from her hypnosis, Gu Mengmeng felt very upset. She knew that she could not turn back now. If the hypnosis failed, or if Qi Xian woke up one day, she might lose this son forever. Sniffling, Gu Mengmeng allowed her tears to roll down her cheeks. She said in a nasal voice, "I beg you, Qi Xian, mother really cannot live without you. Just stay by mother's side, alright? Mother will protect you well in the future. I will never let anyone have the chance to hurt you, make use of you or take you away. I beg you, all right? No. Qishuan's eyes were already starting to glaze over. A drop of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, stinging Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He was clenching his teeth to prevent himself from being controlled by Gu Mengmeng's bewitching spell, so much so that his gums were bleeding. Gu Mengmeng held Qishuan's face with both hands. At that moment, she felt as if her heart was being torn apart. It was as if she had done something very cruel and the victim was her own son. Qi, forget about Cole. He is not a good man. Don't go near him again, don't. Ah dash. Qi suddenly howled in pain and gave Gu Mengmeng a hard shove. He struggled free from Gu Mengmeng's hand, but he also lost consciousness and fainted. Qi. Gu Mengmeng ignored her pathetic state and scrambled to Qishuan's side. She hugged him and patted his face gently. Leah heard the commotion and rushed in. He helped Gu Mengmeng place Qi on the bed and sighed. Did you succeed? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, I don't know. He suddenly fainted. Chapter 1005. Leah, I realize that I no longer have the right to scold others for being selfish. Gu Mengmeng leaned into Lee's arms, but her eyes were moist as she gazed at Qi. Her voice was choked with sobs. I have become what I hate the most, selfish and greedy. I am unwilling to sacrifice myself, but still force Qi to stay by my side. Gu Mengmeng wanted to laugh, but the moment she opened her mouth, she started crying. I feel that I have become the kind of parent that children hate the most. Judging the friends of the children based on their own preferences, forcefully stopping the children from interacting with what I see as bad friends. No matter how important the bad friends are to the children, I forcefully forbid them from interacting just because I don't like them. Am I a bad mother? If that's the case, it is right that Qi does not want to stay by my side, because I am a bad mother, sob. Silly girl. Leah sighed softly. He hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly. Only then could she feel that she was not alone and that he was still around. Kissing Gu Mengmeng's tears, he said, if you are really selfish, you will not be feeling so upset now. Selfish people can find millions of reasons to justify their selfishness, to make their selfishness seem righteous. Gu Mengmeng cried silently. She did not cry tragically, but the way her shoulders twitched made Lee's heart ache. In the past, whenever the females in the tribe cried, Leah would usually laugh and say, cry for a while and stop crying when no one cares. Don't care. But now, he could not bear to put Gu Mengmeng down and let her sit here crying alone. Xiao Meng, we all know that you are doing this because you love Qi. You are afraid that he will be in more danger if he stays by Cole's side. You are doing this for his own good. For his own good, in the end, the one who hurts him the most is me, the one who says that I am doing this for his own good. Gu Mengmeng's heart throbbed as she gripped Lee's arm tightly. Qi gave me a third option. As long as I am willing to sacrifice myself, he will be willing to come back, I heard that. Leah said, but, you know very well. If I accepted Cole, the situation would become a fight to the death between Elvis, Cole, and me. We will not allow any male to force you against your will. Based on Qishuan's relationship with Cole, he will definitely help Cole. Then, either Elvis and I killed Cole and Qi, or they killed us. Either way, it would be worse than the current situation, wouldn't it? Gu Mengmeng knew that Leah was purposely telling her the worst-case scenario so that she could relieve the guilt in her heart. If she did not have Snake's 1,000 years of memories, if she did not have Wang Xiaoxin's psychological knowledge, perhaps she would become happy as Leah wished. But, the cruelest thing about fate was that it took away the ifs and left only the results. And in the end, she had disregarded Qishuan's wishes and forcefully removed Cole from his life. Gu Mengmeng did not say anything else and just leaned on Li's shoulder, crying non-stop. Because of guilt, but also because of heartache. She would never forget the look on Qishuan's face when he resisted her hypnosis. He hated her. Chapter 1006. Qi Xian had been unconscious for 3 days, and Gu Mengmeng had accompanied him for 3 days without taking off her clothes. Her eyes were already bloodshot, but Gu Mengmeng refused to rest. She held on to Qi Xuan's hand with both hands and stared at him without blinking, as if she was afraid that Qi Xian would disappear the moment she closed her eyes. Finally, those slender eyelashes quivered slightly, and Gu Mengmeng immediately tensed up as if she had been electrified. Even her breathing became extremely light, as if only the person who had been unconscious for 3 days could attract her attention in this entire world. Qi Xian hooked his finger gently, then his eyelashes quivered even more. Every change tugged at Gu Mengmeng's heart, and her tightly pursed lips were so pale that not a single trace of blood could be seen. Finally, Qi Xian opened his eyes and stared blankly at the ceiling. He was completely expressionless, and there was no sign of life in him. He just stared at the sky quietly. Qi Xian, Qi Xian. Gu Mengmeng's voice was hoarse. She tried her best not to sound tired, but she had not slept for 3 days. If not for Snake's strength, she would have collapsed long ago. Qi Xian ignored Gu Mengmeng's call and did not respond at all. Gu Mengmeng was extremely afraid. She gently held on to Qi Xuan's hand and called out again, Qi Xian, I am your mother. Qi Xian turned his head slightly and looked at Gu Mengmeng. His gaze was as if he was looking at a stranger, devoid of any emotions. Gu Mengmeng's dry eyes met Qi Xuan's, and neither of them said a word. Until Qi Xian silently closed his eyes, and then returned to his sleeping position, as if he had never woken up. Qi. Elvis gently patted Gu Mengmeng's shoulder and said, since he is awake, he should be fine. Maybe he is just not used to it yet. Give him some time, don't worry too much. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips and did not say a word. Elvis carried her into his arms and said, you have not slept for 3 days. Now that he is awake, you should be at ease. You should at least sleep for a while. Otherwise, he will be fine, but you will fall. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. I don't dare to sleep. I am afraid that once I wake up, Qi Xian will be gone. Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead. Leah and I are guarding the house, while Wabi is coiled up at the door. Even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms, he can't escape. Sleep for a while, alright? Leah also sat beside Gu Mengmeng and promised, be good and sleep, I will guard him. If there's anything wrong with him, I'll wake you up immediately, okay? Gu Mengmeng knew that her emotions affected the entire family. Not just Elvis and Leah, even the 3 little ones and Wabi had not been feeling well for the past 3 days. Not wanting them to worry even more, Gu Mengmeng finally nodded. She tilted her head and leaned into Elvis's arms, slowly closing her eyes. Gu Mengmeng did not sleep well and woke up after half a day. The moment she opened her eyes, she realized that Qi Xian wasn't on the bed and all her drowsiness disappeared in an instant. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng, who was struggling to jump off the ground, and comforted her softly. Don't panic, Qi Xian is fine. He's sitting at the door. Chapter 1007. Gu Mengmeng felt her heart settle back into her stomach. She slowly relaxed and stood up from Elvis's arms. She slowly walked to Qi Xuan's side and did not say anything. She just sat there quietly with him. They sat there until the night sky was dark and the moonlight shone brightly. Qi Xian stood up, still not saying a word. He just circled around Gu Mengmeng and returned to the cave. He laid on the bed he had woken up on, maintaining a supine position and slowly closed his eyes. It was obvious that he had fallen asleep. Gu Mengmeng also wanted to stand up but her legs were numb from sitting for so long. The moment she stood up, her entire body tilted. Luckily, Elvis reacted quickly and caught her, placing her in his arms. Don't worry, it will be all right. Gu Mengmeng could only believe Elvis's words now that things had come to this. For the next 10 days, Qi Xian would wake up in the morning and sit at the door without moving. During this period, Heda and his brothers would bring him food. He would eat whatever they gave him, and if they didn't, he wouldn't eat. Then, he would sit there until midnight before returning to bed to sleep. He ignored everyone and did not say a single word. Gu Mengmeng was so worried that she could not think of a solution. In order not to make her worry, Elvis and Leah had used both the carrot and the stick on Qi Xian without her knowledge. But that fellow remained unmoved no matter how hard they tried. Be it Elvis's physical threats or Lee's verbal attacks, none of them could make Qi Xian say a word. Not even a change in his expression had happened. Until this day, Cole came. His arrival was tacitly approved by Gu Mengmeng. Otherwise, he would not be able to get past Wabiai. Cole stood in front of Qi Xian and just looked at him disdainfully. He called out softly, "Little Xian." Qi Xian looked up in a daze. His eyes met Cole's empty gaze. His expression was still blank, but his brows were slightly furrowed. He slowly got up and stood in front of Cole. After a long while, he turned back to the cave and lay back on the bed. He continued to sleep without a word. Cole stood at the door and glanced at Gu Mengmeng. He chuckled. "Ah, Gu, I waited for you for 10 days. Why didn't you come to see me?" Gu Mengmeng frowned and did not say a word. She just turned around and sat by Qishuan's bedside. Holding his hand, she quietly watched as he closed his eyes to sleep again. Cole chuckled. "Now that Qi Xian has returned to your side, I no longer have anything to threaten you with. You don't want to kill me?" Gu Mengmeng slowly released Qishuan's hand and gently stroked his hair. Then, she stood up and walked out of the cave. Due to her height, she had to look up at Cole. Over 10 days of worry had made her extremely haggard. When this face appeared in front of Cole at such a close distance, Cole frowned involuntarily. "Do you have a way?" Although it was a question, it sounded like a statement. "Let's talk about a condition. You help me save Qi Xian and I will do something for you." "Anything?" Cole's question implied that he could save Qi Xian and had already thought of the conditions. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath. "I cannot harm my partner, family, or friends. I can do anything else." Chapter 1008. Sure. Gu Mengmeng answered without a hint of hesitation. Cole did not seem surprised by Gu Mengmeng's answer. He just narrowed his eyes and asked in a playful tone, "You can also put up with accepting me?" Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly. Her entire body was trembling, but she still nodded and said, "Sure." Cole suddenly laughed and waved his hands, saying, "You don't have to be so angry. I will not make such a request, after all. I want to be the most special existence in your life, the one and only kind. You already have 2 partners, I don't care." He didn't care. Not only did Gu Mengmeng not feel the slightest bit of anger from being despised, she felt as if a huge burden had been lifted off her shoulders. Because in her predictions, this was the most disgusting and worst-case scenario. As long as it was not this, she did not mind breaking one of her arms or both of her legs, or even taking her life in exchange for Qishuan's safety. Cole pointed at Gu Mengmeng's neck and said, "I want you to cut off the guardian mark on the back of your neck and completely break all ties with Snake. How about that?" Gu Mengmeng's loosened fists instantly clenched tightly. It was not that she could not bear to part with Snake's power, nor was she afraid of getting hurt. It was just that this mark was the only thing Snake had left for her. He had protected her in 2 lifetimes, regardless of the cost. Now, she had to forcefully cut off all evidence of his existence and destroy all traces of him. Can't bear to part with him? Cole seemed rather unhappy. His gaze drifted towards Qi Xian, who was lying on the bed in the house. He said, "You don't really love this son of yours. Since that's the case, why don't you let me bring Qi Xian away? If I can wake him up once, I can wake him up a second time. Or, do you like this obedient son who won't disobey you so much that you want him to live obediently by your side for the rest of his life?" Gu Mengmeng looked up and took a step forward. Without any warning, that hand pierced through Cole's chest and dug a bloody hole in his right chest. Cole frowned and groaned, but did not dodge or struggle. Instead, he suddenly laughed and looked down at Gu Mengmeng's wrist that was stuck in his body. His smile gradually became crazier. Ha! Ha! My Gu has grown up, you finally have sharp claws. And, that's great, the first person you scratched was me. Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand expressionlessly, while Elvis and Leah, who had smelled the scent of blood, rushed to her side the second after Gu Mengmeng's hand pierced through Cole's chest. Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand. From her fingers to her wrist, it was stained with blood and a fishy smell permeated the air. Gu Mengmeng raised her hands horizontally and said, "Dirty, I need to wash my hands." Leah frowned and did not say anything. He just went back to fetch some clean water and came back to wash Gu Mengmeng's hands carefully. Gu Mengmeng stared straight at Cole and said, "If you have any more ideas about my son, next time, I will dig a hole on your left side." "No, Gu." Cole did not care that his wound was bleeding profusely. He smiled like a pervert and said, "If you want to torture me, you can't dig the left side of my chest. Because if my heart was ripped out, I would die. That way, you can't torture me anymore. Can you bear for me to die so comfortably, so easily? Don't you feel that you should let me suffer more pain and torture, so that you can vent the anger in your heart? So, if there's a next time, you should dig this side on the right side, right here. Dig out the newly grown flesh again. That's the most painful part, do you understand?" Aside from the topic, I saw some readers saying that it was fine to not have a son like Qi Xian, since he was not the only child anyway. But to a mother, the value of a child has nothing to do with the number of children. Every child is precious. You can't abandon them just because they are disobedient, or bring you trouble. Today's update ends here. Chapter 1009. Gu Mengmeng ignored Cole. She just looked at her hands that had been washed clean by Leah, before turning to walk back into the cave. As she walked, she asked, "Wabi, how many days has it been since you last ate? Are you hungry?" Wabi stuck out his tongue lazily and narrowed his eyes dangerously. "Yeah, a little hungry. I want to eat a 5th-level fox to replenish my energy." Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything else and just continued walking into the cave. Cole had actually requested for Gu Mengmeng to dig out Snake's mark on the back of his neck. Even if Gu Mengmeng didn't say anything, Wabi would not let Cole off. But if Gu Mengmeng didn't express her stance, Wabi might spare Cole's life for Qishuan's sake. But now, Gu Mengmeng didn't want to be led by the nose by Cole anymore. Qi Xian was her son. She must have a way to save him. If she couldn't make him return to normal, then she would raise this son for the rest of his life. Back in the cave, Elvis sighed. "Why do you have to do it yourself? Don't you still have me?" Gu Mengmeng used a beast skin to wipe her hands. "I didn't want to kill him. I was just too angry and needed to vent." Elvis didn't say anything else and just quietly accompanied Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng's hands had already been washed clean by Leah and she had also used a beast skin to wipe them for a long time. But even so, Gu Mengmeng still felt that there was a bloody smell on her hands that she couldn't get rid of. "Mother." That soft call instantly calmed Gu Mengmeng down. She didn't have the leisure to care about her hands anymore. She just went to Qishuan's bedside and looked at him, who was staring at the ceiling of the cave, waiting for him to continue. "Did I forget something?" Gu Mengmeng gently caressed Qishuan's face. "Why do you say that?" Qi Xian stayed silent for a long time. "I don't know. I just feel. I seem to have lost something very important. But I can't remember what it is." Cole was very important to Qi Xian. She knew this when she hypnotized him. So, even though she was angry, she only dug out Cole's right chest and didn't dig out his heart. Gu Mengmeng forced a smile. "If you can't remember, that means it's not that important. Why don't you cherish what you have now? Qixian didn't say anything else. He just slowly closed his eyes and didn't say anything. Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a long time until Qixuan's breathing became light and rhythmic. Wabiai and Cole were still locked in a fierce battle at the door, but Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered with them. In any case, Wabiai would not be the one at a disadvantage. "Hubby, I want to see my father." Gu Mengmeng leaned her head against Elvis's chest, her gaze fixed on Qixian. Elvis thought, Gu Mengmeng had not had a good rest these few days. At least her body was in a sleeping state when she went to the beast deity's place, so it could be considered a rest. So she nodded and said, "All right, I will watch over Qixian for you. I will not let anything happen to him." Gu Mengmeng nodded, then slowly closed her eyes. Both physically and mentally exhausted, the moment Gu Mengmeng relaxed, rather than saying that she fell asleep, it would be more accurate to say that she fainted. However, this did not prevent her from entering the dream world to be a filial daughter. At the end of the white fog, she saw that two-seater bench. But strangely, that patch of green was no longer 2 square meters in size. It had expanded by several times. If it was originally the size of a bed, it now looked at least the size of a basketball court. Aside from the topic, cries for Cole to be killed rang out. Doesn't this mean that the villain I created is quite successful? Chapter 10:10. It was rare that the beast deity was not sitting on the long bench waiting for her leisurely. Instead, he stood at the entrance with his arms wide open. The moment he saw Gu Mengmeng, he immediately pulled her into his arms and said with a fatherly benevolence, "My precious daughter, you have suffered." Gu Mengmeng had not cried since Qixian woke up. The tears that she had held back for more than 10 days burst at the beast deity's words. She did not dare to cry in front of Elvis and Leah. She was also afraid that her son would see her tears. She had a hard time holding it in. Her chest felt stuffy and uncomfortable as if it had been stuffed with cotton. The beast deity patted her on the back and said, "Silly girl, why hold it in all by yourself? Why didn't you come back earlier? You still have your father." Gu Mengmeng cried for a long time until she had vented all the pent-up emotions in her heart. Then, she looked up at the beast deity with her swollen eyes. "Can you answer my question first? I am not in the mood to watch television now." The beast god nodded. "What do you want to ask?" Gu Mengmeng said, "I hypnotized Qixian, but the effects were strange. Qixian is like a doll whose soul has been hollowed out, living like a zombie." "Father, did I do something wrong?" The beast deity caressed Gu Mengmeng's head and said with heartache and helplessness, "You have already done very well. He will be fine." Gu Mengmeng's eyes widened in an instant and her tears were locked by hope. Her voice trembled slightly as she asked carefully, "Really?" It was only 2 words, but they expressed her uneasiness. Her slender fingers gripped the beast deity's sleeves tightly. Her fingertips turned white and trembled uncontrollably. The beast deity held Gu Mengmeng's hand. "Didn't you already give the soul of the forest to Qixian?" Gu Mengmeng was stunned for half a second, then she nodded. The beast deity continued, "The soul of the forest has 2 leaves. The first one has already bloomed. It saved Qixian's life, right?" Gu Mengmeng continued nodding. The beast deity said, "There is one more leaf. When the time is right, it will bloom. At that time, Qixian will return to normal." Gu Mengmeng asked anxiously, "Then, when will it unfold?" The beast god shook his head. "Wait." Gu Mengmeng's face darkened. "How long do I have to wait? My heart aches seeing Qixian in such a half-dead state." The beast deity chuckled. "My heart aches when I see my daughter so heartbroken." Gu Mengmeng looked up at the beast deity's benevolent smile. She felt a lump in her throat and could not say a word. So this was how it felt to be doted on by a father. After the age of 5, she had forgotten about it. The beast deity placed his large hand on Gu Mengmeng's head and gently caressed it. He then said, "You must learn to trust your own children. They are not as weak as you think." Just like you, there are many times when you do things that surprise me and make me proud. For example, Gu Mengmeng was a mother in front of Qi Xian, but in front of the beast deity, she truly felt like a daughter. The feeling of a 19-year-old daughter pestering her father for comfort was really good. The beast deity smiled gently, looking as though he was deep in thought. After a moment of silence, he said, "For example, you often come back to watch television with me. When I went to the meeting last time, I asked others. Their children didn't go home to watch TV with them." Chapter 10-11. Alright, accompany me to watch the drama first, we can talk about the rest later. The beast deity pulled Gu Mengmeng to sit on the long bench and brushed away the white fog. Knowing that Qi Xian had the soul of the forest to protect him and would eventually get better, Gu Mengmeng felt much better. Immortals wouldn't lie, would they? At least her father did not lie to her. With her mood relaxed, Gu Mengmeng stopped crying. She held on to the beast deity's arm and leaned her head on his shoulder, accompanying him to watch the drama. The lights in the villa were still dim, but even so, it could not hide Gu Mengmeng's distress. She instinctively wanted to snatch the love letter from Snake's hand, but how could Snake let her succeed? With just a light wave of his hand, he had the absolute advantage based on the difference in height. Gu Mengmeng could not snatch it by force, so she could only smile awkwardly and say, You still kept it? Your first love letter, of course I have to keep it." Snake's smile was light, but it carried a hint of settling scores after the fall. Gu Mengmeng mumbled softly, "It's not for you." Snake acted as if he did not hear her, but his face darkened further. His slender fingers took out the letter from the envelope. One corner of the letter had been rubbed so hard by him that it looked like it was about to crack. His two fingers just happened to pinch on that crease. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to tell that the part below those two fingers had been ravaged by him. "I like you, like a sweet dream, in the midst of warmth. I like you, like the rain falling on the tropics and the poles, from thousands of miles away. I like you, like the smoke from the kitchen chimney, the snow and the rain falling from the pears. I like you, like the clouds chasing after the wind, without asking where it came from. I like you, 10 miles of spring wind cannot compare to you." Snake read every word, his tone and sentences perfectly timed. His eyes were fixated on Gu Mengmeng's face, as if the letter in his hand was just a prop. This person had already memorized the contents of the letter, as if the letter in his hand was just evidence that Gu Mengmeng could not deny. Are you sure that someone like Zhang Jincheng, who has never scored double digits in Chinese, can understand this kind of sentence? Gu Mengmeng had already been forced into a corner by Snake and had nowhere to hide. When he leaned over, Gu Mengmeng pressed herself against the wall, looking as if she wanted to embed herself into the wall. She was a little timid and helpless, but this made the anger in Snake's chest gradually dissipate. In any case, Zhang Jincheng had never seen this love letter before. Apart from him, no one had seen it. And the person who wrote this love letter now belonged to him and only him. However, he couldn't let her pass so easily. Otherwise, he didn't know how bold she would be next time. Cupping his hands beside Gu Mengmeng's ears, Snake's face pressed closely against the tip of Gu Mengmeng's nose. His warm and ambiguous breath blew onto Gu Mengmeng's face. Snake said in a low voice, "You don't even like him that much, so you never intended for him to understand or accept this love letter from the start." Gu Coward shrunk her neck and said softly, "I didn't know that his Chinese wasn't good." Snake gritted his teeth. Who was the one who said she was a coward? In the 19 years of his rebirth, no one dared to go against his wishes when he was so angry. He had already given her a way out, but she still refused to come down. His teeth were itching, he really wanted to bite her to death and end it once and for all. But, he knew that he couldn't bear to. Aside from the topic, everyone had been disgusted by Cole recently. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.